photos with one another, and there was over 2,000 photos on there, so I condensed it down to 41 photos that say the best of what we got going on. As far as churches, we were in two main towns. We were in Cobway, which is further south, and then we were in Kawambwa, which is much further north in the country. If you look on the map, they're several hours apart, but we actually took a plane from one to the other. But we were in 5 churches in Cobway, and then we were in 6 churches in Kawambwa. And yeah, some of these names you got to really enunciate. But this is a service of about 100 people there, and we were the guest speakers. And in these churches, these churches bring us there. They set all this up. They do all the behind-the-scenes stuff for the crusades. They do everything, setting us up for the ministry. And these churches are rock stars. They really just go all out to help us out to facilitate these things. We're not going into areas where there's not Christian faith, or there's not churches. Now, once we get out of the cities and get away into the little villages, now it's a whole different story. But when you're in the cities like these, they have churches, so we go minister on Sundays, and it's great because even in this situation, it gives you some kind of normalcy. It gives you the little bit of feeling like you're back home, because the majority of it is not. There's so much going on, and it's just a lot to take in. This church here wasn't even built. They just have a tin roof over the top of it. They're trying to build the building. Everything's open floor. Just phenomenal trip. There was, and I didn't even write this down, I forgot. There was a family there that we were praying for, and the wife was having heart palpitations and pains in her legs. And okay, so we start praying for her. Then the lady next to her stands up. Well, she said, well, somebody in the middle of the night cut my hair, and now I have a headache. Like, what in the world is going on here? And it's starting to sound demonic. And then all of a sudden, Father stands up next to them, and he's like, yeah, we were fixing to start an orphanage in our home. And by his own words, these spirits started coming against us. So something in their home has sprung up because of what they were desiring to do, the things they were looking to step into. And this daughter, she's 19 to 25 years old. Something in them like cut her hair. She had a bald spot. And so we're praying over her family. We're telling them, like, hey, when you get home, you've got to pray over your home. You've got to get this out of your home. We're standing in agreement with you. And just seeing these people in these things, they're in church, and they're still dealing with this kind of stuff. So that just goes to show, here, you're still going to deal with things. You still have things that you have to profess over, things that you have to pray about, things you have to give to God, and things you have to exercise out of your home. And in the churches, it was just a great time. People come up for a lot of prayer, some healing, but a lot of what was going on in these towns was a lot of encouragement. They were just desiring blessings. They were desiring to be prayed over, to do better in school, to study harder, to just have peace in their home. And there was a lot of that going on, and it was a really great time ministering in these churches. And for me, this trip was just like the other two. It was very much similar. You have the same demonic manifestations. You have the same people desiring prayer for stomach issues, for infertility, for things that they have going wrong. And I really, going over there, had expectations of just seeing some off-the-wall stuff. And the off-the-wall stuff I seen was the stuff I'd already seen. And so I had to really sit and pray about it and talk to God and look and see what was going on here. And for me personally, what I experienced there was a lot of personal growth. I was leading the day team during the day, going to these schools and ministering at these schools where I've never done that before. And they're, somehow or another, I'm one of the senior people there that knew what was going on somehow or another. And so they're relying on me to get around to the schools, talk at the schools. Did my first altar call there in front of 3,000, did my first altar call at a school. I've led people individually to the Lord, but just a corporate altar call, I had it wrote down, and right in front of me, and I still messed it up. That's something when you see the gravity of leading souls to Christ, that really sets on you. I'd give my first testimony in front of 3,000 people. It was a packed house that night, just people everywhere as I'm giving my testimony, just things of that nature that I hadn't done before, stepping out, stepping up, becoming more a part of what's going on there, and those things there were the huge things for me that I saw that I brought back with me. And this next thing, we went to the home. I don't know if y'all know, but you can pause it right there. Nate has been trying to get this home built for a couple of years. And I've told y'all before that there's roughly 70 kids that are in prisons in Zambia that haven't done anything. They were just born in the prison. There's no family for them to go to, no place for them to go. So these kids are growing up in the prisons. And Nate got his funding together and got grants from Zambia to take this land. It's roughly 7-8 acres that he has there. They've done all of this work in the last couple of years. It was just pasture land. The buildings that you see there, I got my little handy dandy pointer. So this building right there was the first one that was set up. This was like the guard shack. And when they first started building this, people came and stole the materials, even though they know what this place was going to be. So they had to really put a rush on building the guard shack so he could watch the place. And this house and this house are the two main houses. You can see they have some solar going on. They have no city electricity out there because it's kind of out in the way. And they're really trying to decide whether we're going to do city electricity or just upgrade the solar that's there. I really hope they stick with the solar because it'll be a lot more reliable. But then you look, these two buildings here don't have any roofs on them. Right now they have 8 kids that they've taken out of the prisons, and they have 7 more that they're awaiting paperwork on to be able to get them out of the prison, to get them into more of a natural setting. These settings have 2 moms in each house with, I think it was 6 kids is what the setup is. And so Nate just got funding while we were there to put roofs on these 2 houses. So in the next couple months, they will have roofs on them. They'll be able to start looking at helping more kids get out of the prison system. And the Zambian government has it on their heart for this home will hope to take all of them kids out of prison. And some of these kids, you can see, man, they're just rough. They've seen some things. They've been through some things. They don't hardly talk, and just real quiet. And so y'all get to see some pictures of them, but I can't post them on social media because of the legality of them still coming out of this. So if you want to change pictures a little bit. And so this is, you'll see the front of the building here, the ones that they're building. It's just cinder block buildings. And these are the ones that are done. And you see that they have paver stones and kids just milling around. And this was super cool. If you want to pause it for a second. They wanted to just have a birthday party for all these kids, even though it wasn't their birthday. Just have a party, have a little, as Root put it, a little vacation Bible school for these guys. And I stuck my foot in my mouth and asked her, okay, are we going to do a lesson or are we just going to play around with them? And she's like, that's a great idea. You should put a lesson together. I was like, oh, okay, cool. How long do I got? Oh, you got about 30, 40 minutes. All right, cool. What do you want it to be on? You know, on self-worth, value, how God sees you. Cool. So we just took a quick run through the Bible and showed, you know, where their place was with God, how God valued them, how God saw them. And just a great time with these kids doing this little Bible study. And he told them, like, hey, you listen, you get some treats, and we're going to play some games. And you can start rolling those pictures, Jordan. And something I realized, these kids, everything they've been through, don't care where you're at. You give kids a balloon, they're in hog heaven. We took a bunch of balloons and just played pickleball with these kids and just having little activities with them. One of them, I think they were playing Jenga. These kids were just having an absolute field day playing Jenga, playing chess. Some of them was playing bones inside. They didn't quite understand, but they was getting down with it, just having a good old time. Get off of us shoveling dirt. This here is the truck that Nate transports everything in. They just got the sides put on it last year. I wanted y'all to see that. This is how he transports the stage, the sound, the generator, all that. And this is Paul Shoshone. He's the top guy on the ground there. Without him, this doesn't happen. He's pastor, he's translator, he speaks 5 different languages, just a cool dude, very humble. And he's the one that makes all this happen on the ground. Just highly blessed. Now these kids here, there's several kids here that you're seeing that can't be shown on social media that were taken out of the home. And like I said, they were very quiet, very reserved. didn't say hardly anything, but then you start handing them toys, and these guys just blossomed. And the clothes they're wearing are the clothes that I brought from the Home of Hope in Seminole. It's not Home of Hope. Hope and Healing Center. And there's us having a little birthday party with them, me with my little tiara on, and just having a good old time with the kids. Like I said, the kids, it was the craziest thing. You give these kids balloons, and they blossom. They're just having a blast. There's no problems, no issues. Just we got to go shopping. They had an actual grocery store / marketplace, and so we just went and just loaded up and went nuts. And they took plastic, which was a big mistake. And so there you see they're playing Jenga. They had music going in the background, just having a blast with these kids, having a good old day. They had some cake for them, and some of these kids have never had any of that, have never known playing, have never known peace. And just to see these guys just having such a good time was huge for these guys. And this one here, y'all have seen her growing up. This is Tupilwe. If you want to go back, Jordan. This is the little one that was born in the latrine, and they found her, and she had scars on her face and on her hands. One of her eyes is not super great. She's just a blast. She's happy. And she just turned 4 while we were there. Just such a good little kid, and so much fun. He's okay unless he's bothering somebody. Is that all of those, Jordan? But y'all were seeing us with shovels and pickaxe. We were trying to do some work around the grounds, trying to start putting in some paver stones because they can't get any more kids until some of the stuff is finished around there, because the Zambian government wants to come in there and inspect, check everything out because of the way these kids are coming out of the prisons. So we were doing some groundwork, leveling some ground, trying to start putting some pavers in and things of that nature. But that sunset, like I said, the only other place I've ever found that's close to West Texas sunsets is Africa. Just gorgeous, and pictures don't do it justice. But, so yeah, the 2 more are getting roofs soon. And so I'll send some of these pictures to the Hope and Healing Center because she wanted to see, these guys with the clothes on. And they sent me with a ton of stuff. I just couldn't carry it all. But then the next thing we done was very cool and very strange. I don't really have much pictures of it. This guy here, I wasn't even actually supposed to have this picture, but he was occupied, so these guys were helping us get the stage and stuff set up. And I really don't have any pictures of the UN refugee camp. You can hold it right there, Jordan. But we went to a UN refugee camp, and these were mostly Congolese and Ugandan refugees. And it was a very strange thing because this refugee camp had been there for 40 years. These people were no longer in a refugee camp. This was a refugee settlement. And it really reminded me of like the American Indians on the reservations. It is what it really reminded me of, how Americans took them and just shoved them in the reservations, and they were stuck there, and then they just kind of, whatever the government does for us, this is how it goes. And that was really what this looked like. These people they were just surviving. They weren't thriving. And they had this whole community. It was 30 square miles of land that they were given, and they had that defeated mindset. The only thing I have to compare it to is like when we went to Spanish Lookout, it was a similar setup. The Belizean government give those Mennonites so many acres of land, and they built a home. They started farming the woodlands and turning it into a home and built a beautiful town. Whereas you see these guys at the UN refugee camp, some of them are 2nd and 3rd generation there in this refugee camp, and they still have that defeated mindset that, just what can the government do for me, and waiting on that. You see all these signs where groups have come in and set up to do this project, and it's half finished. Groups have come in to do this project, and it's half finished. And you can see they're waiting on what's next, like who's going to come in to do something next, instead of having this community and kind of rising up and helping themselves. I'm not sure. I'm sure there's things I'm missing there, but it was very humbling. It was a population of about 10,000 people, and we did a little ministers conference there, and then we set up and ministered to these guys, and roughly 1,500 people attended, and 700 of that received salvation. And just They didn't want us to leave, but we were very strictly informed that we had to be out of there and be down the road before dark, or it would not be good. And we barely got out of there in time. I don't know what was next, but they were like, you have to go now. Well, see you later. Okay, we're out. And the next place we went to was Kawamba. Like I said, we had to take a flight to get there, and very cool little town, a town of about 40,000 people. They done a census this past year, and 250 people were trained to assist with the crusade, to help out, to be ushers, things of that nature, because it takes the ground people to help facilitate everything. And don't misunderstand what I'm saying. Us Americans and us world travelers are the big ticket. We're the hot item. You know, we're the main attraction. And I don't like that, but in their eyes, this is what they see. All these Masungus showing up, you know, coming to minister to us. They bring Jesus with them, you know, and you have to really humble yourself, and you have to really understand what you're doing there. And so these ushers and things, the translators, the people that set up and tear down, those guys, just like with anything else, they're rock stars. They're there to help us and make sure that we're able to do what they brought us there to do. And you can kind of scroll through those pictures. Every night you're looking at roughly 2,500 to 3,000 attendees. This is from out in the crowd, and you know, we're out there, big old white folk just in the crowd walking around, and they're steadily staring at you, just watching what you're doing, because they're just not used to seeing white folk. And it's a funny thing. One of the ushers was just a big guy. He's 6'8" inches taller than me, which in Africa, you don't ever see that. And as people come down manifesting and they start flopping around, these guys would just come grab them and carry them off to the back. And this guy, he reminded me of a bouncer. He'd grab one, drag him out, come back, get him another one. This dude just all night long just grabbing them, dragging them out. And you see him, because he's taller than me, just having a blast, just getting these guys, taking them back there, you know, getting help for them. Hold on right there, Jordan. That's the schools. Go back. But there was, by those numbers, we're estimating these numbers, and these are kind of somewhere in the middle. I don't think they're high or low numbers, but we're guesstimating 15,000 people attended over the 5 days. So 3,600 people filled out I received salvation forms, and I would like more information. I would like a church to reach out to me, little cards I got. And over the entire trip, we're estimating 5,500 people received salvation. We handed out 50 Bibles, and then they make a new believer booklet in Bimba, their native language, and 3,000 of those were handed out while we were in the area. And you know, as far as healings go, guys, there was tons of stuff. Like I said, I was really just looking for that, raising somebody from the dead, or somebody just growing an arm back, and I was looking, I was expecting. But this trip wasn't really geared that way. It was a lot of small things. A lot of people with stomach aches, which over there you see that a ton, and I expect that's probably from dehydration, malnutrition, bad food, and a lot of headaches, same thing. Bad water or not near enough water. But there was a lot of people, a lot of vision problems this time that we prayed for, and seeing vision restored, seeing vision better. And I hate even saying this, but this one lady come up, an older lady, and her vision was just almost gone. Even with glasses, she could barely see. And I got that holy unction that I was supposed to spit in the mud and rub in her eyes, and I just couldn't bring myself to do it. I don't know if that was me saying I ought to do that, or the Holy Spirit telling me to do that, but I just couldn't make myself do it. So I didn't. Now, her vision was improved, but it wasn't good. And I'm really curious if I should have just went ahead. But there was... and like I said, we've probably seen a couple hundred demon manifestations, and it's not like what you see in the movies. They don't climb up walls all funny. They will contort, they will seize, they will hiss at you, they will speak in unknown languages, they will speak in known languages. But one of them in particular, when they start manifesting and you can't catch them, then the ushers grab them and they jerk them to the back quick. And I don't like the way they deal with them back there. It's pretty rough. And so I was praying for one young lady, and I had my hand behind her back, and I was behind her neck, and I was praying for her, and she went to falling out and manifesting. And I reached around her and caught her by the waist too, and I pulled her back up. And them ushers, dude, they were like vultures. They were fixing to snatch her and run with her. I'm like, no, I still got it. As long as you're holding them, they won't take them from you. So I was praying for this young lady, and within a matter of minutes, she come out of it. And the demon let her go, released her, and she was fine. And this is something that I desire. I desire to be able to be in that place, to be able to pray for these people and see these people set free, and not from any personal gain, but that's what we're called to do. We're called to be able to do this, to be able to step into this. Well, it happened again a little bit later, and same thing. I caught her, snatched her back up, went to praying for her, but nothing. There's not a rhyme or reason to it. It's just, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it, but one, it worked. I did the exact same thing with the next one, and it didn't work. But these people, they take them all to the back when this happens, and they all get set free. They'll work with them until they are set free. They won't leave them. And that's one of the good things, that they're really with these people. They're really sticking to them and making sure they're good, and they check on them afterwards. And that Crusades, guys, is just such a huge thing. These people, they don't ever get to see any of this, and Nate comes with this full package, and he has been so blessed. And Nate is the closest thing I know to an apostle. He really is. He has prison ministries set up. He is setting up churches. He is setting up orphanages. He has prison Bible schools going. There was prisoners that graduated from a first-year DE Bible school while we were there. Now with that, you've got to be highly vetted to even get into the prison, so I didn't get to take part in that. But there's just so many cool things going on. And these guys, most of these guys have never seen a show like this. I mean, there's lights. There's this big, nice stage that you're seeing there. We have Christian worship bands, local bands there that are singing, that are dancing, boy, and they just get down and get excited. One lady about fell off the back of the stage, and her friend caught her, and it's like, oh, I thought we was fixing to have to pray for another one. And just such a good time, and Nate is so blessed to have all this equipment and be able to do this. And we can just pull up to any random soccer field, and within a day have the stage set up, have the sound lights set up, and we're rocking. And these people have never seen this kind of stuff. So it draws a crowd naturally. It brings them in. They want to see what's going on. They want to be able to hang out after dark because there's not very many street lights, and a lot of the houses don't have power, or they won't run them just surely for cost. So they're generally in the dark once it goes dark. So we're out there just free lights, and they're having a good old time and wandering around and just really loving the show. And which, for me, the younger ladies that come with us like to go walking out there, and I get to be bodyguard for everybody and go walking around with them. So I've got to walk like this, like, hey, leave them alone, leave them be. Just got to suck some air in, just walk around all big. And the ladies, they get to have fun, and they get to mill around in the crowd, and you just got to kind of watch them, because some of those guys get excited and want to take pictures and this, that, and the other, so you have to really watch them. But it's a lot of fun being over there. These younger guys getting to go and see these things, it's huge for them. It's life-changing to see these people stepping out and stepping into what God has for them, and just seeing all the cool stuff that's going on over there. And there's really good times too. As far you can go ahead and go to the schools. During the day, like I said, there's my little buddy. This guy cracked me up. I stuck my hands out to him, and Oho is a real thing over there too. You want to pet somebody's baby, you pet them. If you don't, they just kind of look at you funny. So this dude, I stuck my hands out, and he stuck his hands out, came to me, just smiling, just checking me out. And it was funny because one of the younger ladies walked up to him to hold him, and he started screaming. So like, yeah, it's my little dude. It's my little buddy. So we had fun, but can you go back to that last picture? See, that's Boyd there standing with me, the guy I was telling you about. Like, Boyd does everything for this. He's the guy that makes all this happen, and he just goes day in, day out. I know he's exhausted, and we're always checking on him to make sure he's getting enough sleep, and he never is. The whole time we're there, he's just running, and just such a great guy. And this school here, I want to say there's probably 800 kids in, I think it's second grade through eighth grade. And at the schools, it was just such a blessing. So over the numbers we got, and the numbers are kind of hard to sort through, but we know we're over 2,100 students attended in those 4 days, and roughly 1,800 or more received salvation, prayed the prayer of salvation, and And it was surprising how many had already received salvation. That was just such a huge thing. Like, hey, have you received salvation? And a large portion of the crowd would raise their hands. Okay, now do you wish to receive salvation? And we would pray with them and pray blessings over them. And the schools over there, all of them are, you got to have uniforms. And so it's surprising to me these kids struggling, the families struggling like they are, and to provide these kids with uniforms for them to be able to go to school. And that's a lot of what we prayed for with these kids is, help me to study better, help me to do good on my test, help me to learn easier, just things of that nature with these kids. We're halfway around the world, and these kids have American problems. They're dealing with the same things our kids are dealing with. They're struggling where our kids are struggling in math, science, whatever it may be. And it's very humbling to see these guys just desiring to be a better student, to be a better kid. And it was just, like I said, all this is just such a huge blessing. And I hope that I'm stirring something in somebody that's desiring to go in the future, because it really shows you who you are when you go on these trips. It really shows you what God has for you and who he's desiring for you. And like I've said before, no matter how much you're pouring out to other people, God is steadily pouring into you. This is how much I love you. This is what I'm willing to do for you. And it's so important in those times to be refreshed like that, because by nature, people that know me, I'm an introvert. I'm not good on stage. I'm not good in front of people. After a while, I get burnt out on people. Towards the end of the trip, the last 3 days, every opportunity I could, I was hiding. If we're not in the midst of doing something, if we're not eating, if we're not actively going somewhere, I was in the room just hiding because I was just peopled out. So I don't understand the plan there with me being the person doing this and the desire that God's put on my heart. But like I said, by the end, I was burnt out. I was tired. And but it was just such a great time. It was such a huge thing. And I genuinely want to say thank you to everybody that helped out with this. And your seed went further than what you know. The people that you affected, the stuff in the school that we're able to do, the home that we're able to be setting up for these kids, this is huge for these people. And, you know, one day when you go over there, you'll see that they're really not much different than us at all. They have very similar problems, and they have very similar desires. And so it's such a huge thing to get to see these guys. And these last couple pictures was a restaurant we went to there at the end, and they still smoke in public there, which was horrible. Dude was burning them one after another, just, ugh. But that last picture there with the lights, go back one more. This was the hotel we stayed at the end. It's a building built out of cargo container boxes. It's called Cargo 88. There's 88 rooms, and they're all cargo boxes. And you can't really tell it until you get in the room. Then it's all fixed up, and it doesn't look like a cargo box, but you get in the room and you look at the dimensions, you're like, yeah, this is a cargo box. Very deep, very narrow, kind of tall. But guys, the trip overall was just such a blast. I had such a good time, and I really enjoyed going. I always enjoy getting home. My brain is still trying to catch up with me. That's a slow process sometimes. But there was a teaching that I had given over there, and I'm trying to get to the point where I'm a little more free about my teachings. I'm not so rigid about them. I'm not so spending just an certain amount of time working on it. Now, I am spending time working on it, but I want to be more led. And this teaching that God gave to me this first Sunday was, how do we hear God? How does he communicate with you? And for everybody, it's a little different. First, so any questions on anything? I love the quiet ones. It's great. But there's many different ways that God communicates with us and talks to us. I am one of a few people that I know that have heard the audible voice of God on more than one occasion. It's a very weird sensation. He kind of sounds like James Earl Jones. Like, Luke, I am your father, you know what I mean? Kind of sounds like that. But he talks to you in many other ways. You have that unction in you that man, that I'm supposed to do this, or maybe I'm not supposed to do this, or somebody comes up and gives you a prophetic word. Even if you don't agree with that word, that doesn't mean that's not God talking to you. And you look at a few different examples through the Bible, You can only imagine Moses at almost 80 years old walking up and seeing a burning bush that hasn't burnt down. It's just sitting there on fire. This would be quite the sight. And then it starts talking like, hey, take your shoes off. He's like, okay, give me a second here. You know, something along them lines, and this is God talking to him. And you start to realize that God is going to talk to you in the best way you're going to receive it. So it doesn't, the way he talks to me is not the same way he's going to talk to you or the way he's going to talk to you. It's just, you can't do it that way because he built us all different. And he's got a lot to say, and he's got everything at his disposal. So you look at Joseph interpreting the king's dreams. This was God talking to the Pharaoh to get the Israelites set up. And so the Pharaoh has these dreams, and he's like, what do they mean? Well, he finally gets Joseph to interpret, and this sets the Israelites in motion for that whole plan that God has there. But that particular Pharaoh prospered heavily from obeying God's word and what God had to say. He could have very easily told Joseph, oh, that's hogwash. That's not going to happen. I'm not going to go with that. And it would have been a whole different story. But that Pharaoh chose to listen to the prophecy that Joseph prophesied over him, interpreting his dreams, and that particular ruler became very wealthy in Egypt. And then you start looking at Elijah. He was a very interesting character. And I want to read this one. Let me set some of my stuff out of the way here. But in 1 Kings 19, in the New Living Translation, I'm going to do it on my phone because I tried to pack light over there and I got quicker using my phone than anything. 1 Kings 19, and starting in verse 11, he says, "Go out and stand before me on the mountain," the Lord told him. And as Elijah stood there, the Lord passed by, and a mighty windstorm hit the mountain. It was such a terrible blast that the rocks were torn loose, but the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind, there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, there was a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, there was the sound of a gentle whisper. So all this stuff is going on, just absolute anarchy here. I can only imagine what he's going through. They make movies about apocalypses that look like what Elijah is seeing here. And he's thinking, God is at you, God is at you. And at the end of this, he hears a gentle whisper. And it's so important in Scripture, it says that God will not compete with the noise around you. He will not compete with what you have going on in your world. So hearing God, first you've got to learn to humble yourself. You've got to get quiet. You've got to be able to listen no matter what's going on around you, what chaos is in your head, what natural occurrence is going on. You've got to be able to listen for that still small voice. And when Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his cloak and went out and stood at the entrance of the cave. And the voice said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" So God knows what's going on. And just like with Adam, he's like, "Where are you, Adam?" God knows what's going on. He knows what Elijah's dealing with, but he still feels it important to ask him, "What are you doing here? Why are you here?" And then you fast forward through some of this, and Elijah is complaining to God. He's telling God, like, "Oh, I'm the last one. They've killed everybody else, and now they're trying to kill me." And God says something to him that, at first glance, is kind of harsh. And in verse 18, he tells him, "Yet I will preserve 7,000 others in Israel who have never bowed down to Baal or kissed him." So what is God saying there? God's not dismissing what Elijah's going through. He's not minimizing what he's feeling. But what he's trying to explain to Elijah is, you're not the only one. You're not alone. There are others. You're just the one that when I ask you, you stepped up. So be diligent in stepping up. And Jesus was very clear. They will hate you for my name's sake. Not for anything you've done, but for who I am. And it's so important to understand when you step up and you start to hear God's voice and hear what he has for you, you're going to encounter opposition. And you look at a different character in the Bible. This one, it's funny the way Jonah is set up. The story of Jonah just cracks me up. I've read it a handful of times, and it every time it gets funnier. Because Jonah God calls Jonah, and it's a very clear, hey, go to Nineveh, go talk to these people. And Jonah's like, no, I ain't going to do it. I'm leaving. I'm getting on a boat. And you were talking about it Sunday, like, Jonah, I can still see you. And he's like, can't see me. I got my eyes closed. You can't see me. Just you can just picture this going on because he's running from him. The majority of this story in the book of Jonah is only 4 chapters long. And he goes through all this stuff. He tells the people, he's like, yeah, this storm was because of me. So they throw him off the ship, and he winds up in the fish. And he finally winds up in Nineveh. And I want to read this from the Message translation because I love the way that it's put. And guys, for me personally, I like to read different translations because it gives me a more full picture of what's going on. I don't just take it out of one book. I want to see what was going on. I want to have everything around me. And so now he has done preach to the people. He's done what God told him to do. And Nineveh has seen a change. The people are coming back to God. And Jonah is still mad. He's still bitter about this. And in verse 7, you got it? We had to do this a little differently for it to come out of the Message. But then God sent a worm. By dawn of the next day, the worm had bored into the shade tree, and it withered away. The sun came up, and God sent a hot, blistering wind from the east. The sun beat down on Jonah's head, and he started to faint. And he prayed to die. I'm better off dead. God is revealing himself to him. God is working through him. God has delivered this city. And Jonah's first thought is, I'm better off dead. And God said to Jonah, what right do you have to get angry about the shade tree? And you can tell the kind of relationship that God and Jonah have. He's like, I have plenty of right. It's made me angry enough to die. This is some Cain stuff here, talking to God this way, just talking that indignantly to God. So you know that God spoke to Jonah on a regular basis. Either that or just Jonah was just crazy. I'm not sure which. But God said, what's this? How is it that you can change your feelings from pleasure to anger overnight about a mere shade tree that you did nothing to get? You neither planted nor watered it. It grew up one night and died the next night. So why can't I likewise change what I feel about Nineveh from anger to pleasure? This big city of more than 100,000 childlike people who don't yet know right from wrong, to say nothing of the innocent animals. So in all this, God is talking to Jonah. God is using him as a vessel to further the kingdom, to bring the city back around. And you see in Sodom and Gomorrah, he was trying to give them a chance. They just flat refused. They were trying to do some bad stuff. But Nineveh changed their heart. They changed their ways, and they started coming around to the Lord, and that made the Lord happy. And he's trying to explain to Jonah, what is it to you if I take pity on these people, if I want to see them right? And in all this, Jonah is right there with the Lord. He's seeing God's heart, and he is still just so bitter, so angry. I just wish I was dead. I'm better off dead. That whole story is a story of God's talking to you. This is how you shouldn't act. And I just, like I said, I love that story. Everybody portrays it as good and sweet, but it's really not. Jonah's got some stuff he's got to work out of. I hope he kind of got that figured out. But you look at the Israelites. God is speaking with them. God is working through them. He's revealing himself to them, and they're still, time and time again, they turn from God. They turn their back on him. They go to worshiping their false idols, and it talks about they worship the idols of their grandfathers or the idols of their fathers, and God is so good that when they stop what they're doing and they listen to God, when they listen to his commandments, he turns his face back towards them. He shows favor on them. He looks after them. And it's so important to understand that God always has your best interests at heart, and so it's so important to take the time to sit in silence, to listen for God, listen for his word. In John 10:27, it says, my sheep hear my voice. So there's been times like you're questioning if you're hearing God. Well, does it line up with Scripture? Does it line up with the Word? Does it, or is this something else that you're hearing? Is this your flesh? Is this some kind of demonic influence? But it's very easy to discern, is this God or is this not? Does it line up with Word? Is it beneficial for mankind? Is he looking after us? These things are all good indicators that, yes, this is from God. And so in Psalms 46:10, he says, "Be still and know that I am God." That is so important. Like I said, with everything you've got going on, and everything being so loud around you, the kids are being loud. They're not settling down for bed. Your dinner's boiling over, or you burn it, or you didn't make no dinner, and you're trying to scramble to figure out something before everybody goes to bed. Your job's not going the right way. God is there in the midst of all of this. God wants to help you. He wants to guide you through these things. He wants to take part in what you're dealing with. Even when you're hurting, it's so easy when you're hurting to just lash out at God. And I'm not saying I haven't done it myself, but God has big shoulders. He understands. He's there for you to cry on. He's there for you to talk to. And he desires for these things. And he desires for you to hear when he's giving you a response. And you look in Isaiah 55. And verses 8 through 13 in the NLT. I've been reading a lot out of the NLT here lately. A lot of it makes sense. I love reading the King James, but it's just so hard to understand for me sometimes. But in Isaiah 55, verses 8, God says, "My thoughts are nothing like your thoughts, says the Lord, and my ways are far beyond anything you could imagine. For just as the heavens are higher than the earth, so my ways are higher than your ways, and my thoughts higher than your thoughts. The rain and snow come down from the heavens and stay on the ground to water the earth. They cause the grain to grow, producing seed for the farmer and bread for the hungry. It is the same with my word. I send it out, and it will always produce fruit. It will accomplish all I want it to, and it will prosper everywhere I send it. You will live in joy and peace. The mountains and hills will burst into song." Y'all remember the 40s black and white cartoons where the dude's just bebopping through the forest and all the flowers are singing to him? When I was reading this is exactly what I was seeing. He probably had the white shoes and the white gloves on. Yeah. "And the trees of the field will clap their hands. Where once there were thorns, cypress trees will grow. Where nettles grew, myrtles will sprout up. These events will bring great honor to the Lord's name. They will be an everlasting sign of his power and love." So, why is his word so important? Why is it so important for us to desire to hear his word, to see what he has for us? It's very clear right here, as Isaiah is talking about. This is what can happen. Your thorns are going to grow away. Trees will begin to grow. Things will begin to prosper in your life. There will be fruit if you'll just listen, if you'll just tune in. So what are some of the examples like? When you're praying to God, when you're asking God for something, it's like any other conversation. You're genuinely desiring a response. And yet so often I'm guilty as anybody of throwing my prayer out there to God and like, all right, God, I've got other stuff I got to bounce, just hit me up later when you have time or when I've got time, whichever. And, it's so important for us to have that intimate knowledge of God. Do you desire to know God's heart? Do you desire to walk in what he has for you? Then you have to spend the time listening, seeking out his word, seeking out what he has for you, seeking out the people around you that are going to speak his word. That so oftentimes when I'm praying to God, when I'm asking a question, my answer comes from somebody around me. Somebody around me will come up to me and say, "Hey, this, and this," and they had no clue what I was dealing with. They had no clue what I was praying about, and the answer was right there. It's just very cool to see God operating through other people that are willing vessels, people that are willing to sit and listen to God. And it's so important for me personally to get to that point where I can sit there and I can listen for God's responses. I can listen for what he has for me. And so you look at Galatians 5:22 and 23. What are the fruits of the Spirit? What is God trying to show us? Love, joy, peace, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. There's so many different translations that have different wording, but the wording's all the same. He's trying to give you the best of what he has. He's trying to put these things in you, and the more you can humble yourself to listen, the more you can sit down and absorb what he has for you, the more you're going to be able to walk in this love, this joy, this peace. The long suffering. Nobody enjoys that one, but long suffering is good for you. It's good to build character. It's good to show patience. You know, if you're not long suffering and then one of your kids goes off the rails, you're going to freak out. You're not going to be able to deal with the situation. So long suffering is a good thing. We just don't like to think it is. But then the last verse I got is 1 Chronicles 28. And verse 8. So now with God as our witness, and in the sight of all Israel, the Lord's assembly, I give you this charge. Be careful to obey all the commands of the Lord your God, so that you may continue to possess this good land and leave it to your children as a permanent inheritance. David here, this is one of the last things he talks about before he hands everything over to Solomon, before he basically goes into the end of his life. And it's so important here. Moses and Joshua had something similar to say. And David's a little bit different here because the last thing he really says is to his son, and Solomon, my son, learn to know the God of your ancestors intimately. Worship and serve him with your whole heart and a willing mind. For the Lord sees every heart and knows every plan and thought. If you seek him, you will find him. Now the last part, that forsaking you and rejecting you, that was Old Testament. That doesn't really apply to us now. You know, this side of the cross, we're not having to deal with that. But David was very clear to his son here. Seek God's heart. Know him intimately. Worship and serve him. And you'll have all these good things. You'll be a part of every plan he has, every thought. These things he'll do for you. And this is why it's so important. Prayer is such a great thing. It's our connection with God. It's how we interact with him. But you have to be able to stop and receive, whether it be an unction inside you of how you're supposed to operate, or somebody coming up and speaking a word to you and you're like, no, that's not for me, I'm, whatever, and bouncing. These things, I'm not saying they're right every time, but you need to take time to meditate on this. Like if somebody gives you a word, think about it, think on it, pray on it, take it to the scriptures, see if it lines up. If it don't, set it on the shelf. It might be for somebody else or it might be for later. But be willing to listen, be willing to seek out God's heart, be willing to be open to what he has for you. And guys, this is really what I had. And like I said, I really appreciate everybody that's taking the time to pour into me for this trip and took part. And prayers were huge. I could feel prayers everywhere as I was going. It's like when you're out doing what you're not supposed to do and your mama's praying for you. It was kind of that same feeling. I had that feeling over me like, yeah, somebody's praying for me. And I appreciate that. I really do, guys, because there's a lot going on over there, and there's a lot of, it's so much more pouring yourself out, and you have to be able to refill yourself, to get reconnected, to get rested. And surprisingly, it's difficult to rest in that environment. It has to be a scriptural rest. You have to be in the Word. You have to be talking with God to actually get rest, because there are times that it's kind of a hostile environment and not necessarily people, but dealing with the demonic side of things. When you're doing what God's designed for you to do, when you're stepping into what he has for you, the devil ain't happy at all about it, and he's going to throw what he can at you, and you just have to understand that his resources are limited. We serve the omnipotent, all-knowing God. He's under our feet. And so you have to be mindful of this, and like I said, it's a phenomenal trip. I wish more people would desire to take these trips and go see these places. Then y'all have cool stories, and I get to sit back and listen. But that's all I got. If anybody needs prayer, hang out. We can pray. Are we good? All right, guys. Thank you, Father, for this beautiful day. Thank you for this beautiful weather that we have, these cool evenings that we have. Thank you for the rain that's coming. We appreciate that. Thank you for looking after these families here that are present. Thank you for taking care of their hearts and being in them and working through them. Thank you for the people that they're going to touch, the lives they're going to affect, and the love that they have for one another that they're able to express through you. Thank you for this fruit that you're giving us and this life that you give us. We love you, Father. Jesus.